for all of us at this time.
Again, it is our passion and our pleasure to be engaged with all of you in this way.
Well, it's been very helpful for me. I'm able to stay within my center and focused on what's going on within me and seeing the invisible barriers between different realities and really being in an active state with myself and a high level of neutrality. So thank you so much, from my heart to yours.
All right. Well, we are, again, happy to provide the information, but we also extend our deep appreciation and thanks to you for being willing to actually apply it in your life, because that's the only thing that really makes the difference.
Yes, and I'm glad I did.
All right.
Yes. I have a question. I'd like to share have you share a little bit more about the simulacrum. I understand what it means to me, but in my reality, have I, through my trainings and understandings, created a third reality within myself for a third mind that is connected with the future self of myself?
Yes, that is always there in that process. No matter how little or much of it you may do, a third Venn, shall we say, overlap or simulacrum is always necessary for that to be experienced on any level.
So in the idea, is that what you would refer to as also a third reality?
Yes.
So in the third reality sense of that idea, is that coming through our reality in a stronger sense now because of our focus has changed a little bit here?
Yes, and we will be talking a little bit more about this in an upcoming transmission called the Parallel Reality Wheel, because that is the general mechanism that is utilized to be more aware of different parallel realities that are overlapping in the here and now, is to create, in a sense, a series of third realities that represents the blending between what you consider your reality to be and another parallel reality. And the more parallel realities you become aware of, the more third realities are created to act as go-betweens or simulacrums so that they can be experienced in that way in your reality.
Now, is that also acting as a bridge for me, for all of us, to go into our future network template for those selves that are available to us now?
Yes.
I've been exploring a little bit of that, and it's been very easy. It's been a seamless connection for me.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm just curious. I live in Sedona, and I would like to know what your location is now. How many miles above?
7,000 of your miles.
Okay. So are we doing everything we can, or can we do more?
You can always do more, but you're doing okay.
All right. Well, I just wanted to connect with you on this note because I'm very grateful for the presence I'm able to give back to this experience right now.
You have our gratitude as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day, Bashar.
And to you, good day.
Good day. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's my highest excitement to interact with you.
And ours as well, to interact with you and all of the rest of you.
Wonderful. And so my first question, I want to ask about this idea of when they say someone is a clear channel and they have no filter, do they still have to have some vibrational relativity or vicinity to the information that's coming through or that they're translating in order to be able to receive it?
Part of the idea of the training is to alter the vibrational frequency of the personality so that it is a better receiver for other kinds of information that may be representative of different frequencies that the channel may not ordinarily access. So yes, they have to have some training or affinity for the vibration that allows for the connection of the third reality in which the information can be accessed. Yes.
Okay. And then my next question, there's this terminology that I hear a lot of channels say, the leading edge. What reference do you have for that?
From our perspective, the idea of the leading edge is that there is an aspect to the entire collective consciousness of your planet that is like a wave, an expanding wave of consciousness, but it is also based partly not only in non-physical, but in physical reality. And therefore, there are certain, shall we say, pressures or resistances in physical reality that pile up against the expansion wave, creating a border or barrier that might be considered the leading edge of the expansion, because there is still a vibrational difference between the front of that wave and the reality that it is changing, which may have still a little bit of resistance to it.
That's really cool. And is there any relativity to the idea of like quantum, like the wave and the particle function? Does that have any relevance there?
Well, there are some cross correlations, but not necessarily exactly in the way that we just described.
Okay. And speaking of the wave and the particle, I was reading a book and they talked about the idea of it's like where our brain is searching for things. And you mentioned that we're shifting billions of times per second. Is that any relevance to the wave and the particle?
It does.
Okay. Can you expand on that?
Well, the idea is that consciousness must be understood to be part of the equation. And when it is understood that way, you will see that it manifests this idea of so-called duality in the concept you call space-time. And in manifesting that duality, you will always have both expressions of energy and matter, wave and particle, as you say, that will allow you the opportunity to know that you sit squarely in between them as a conscious entity, generating them both, so that you have the opportunity to understand your reality as being far more fluid and flexible than you otherwise might have been taught to see. Do you follow?
Yeah, I do.
So science is beginning to break through those understandings and create the idea that reality itself isn't necessarily as solid as you used to think, that the very idea of space-time may need to be dissolved in the understanding that all of these things issue from the consciousness field that exists prior to the experience of space and time. In other words, to use an example, you have in your quantum physics the concept of entanglement. Do you understand?
Yes.
But many of your scientists thought, and many still think, that this idea of entanglement demonstrates action at a distance, that if you have two particles that were created and they split off and go in two different directions and are light years apart, but you still manipulate one particle, knowing that the other particle is then simultaneously manipulated, making it appear as if they are breaking the speed of light barrier, because how can the information of this manipulation reach that particular particle faster than the speed of light? So many have assumed and coined the phrase that this is spooky action at a distance that they didn't understand. However, it is not a demonstration of action at a distance. It is a demonstration that distance is an illusion.
Very cool.
Because those particles are actually still here and now, no matter where they appear to be in the illusion of physical space, time, and volume. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Therefore, all of these kinds of understandings and recognitions are beginning to break down the concept of what quantum reality really is, which is simply one of the first expressions of consciousness creating a matrix and a crystallization, shall we say, field that creates the foundation of what you experience as the physical reality dream. It's just an expression that lays a carpet down for you or a game board down for you so you can play the physical reality game.
That's pretty cool. And
does that make sense?
It does make sense. And so is there, what function do our brains have in this idea of the like things shifting billions of times per second? What mechanism? What's actually happening there?
Well, the idea is that you become literally a new person with a new brain that is more adapted to the idea of the vibrational shift of the reality that you have made. You never have the same brain. You never even have the same atomic structure.
So crazy. I love that.
Yes.
That's really exciting.
It is.
And thank you for that. And then my next question. So I want to give a huge testament to acting on my excitement. I'm doing it to the best of my ability, and I'm experiencing so much synchronicity and so much many kind of alignment signs. It can sometimes be a little overwhelming. just in the fact that there's so much of it that it's almost like people around me don't know how to handle it. And so I'm having an adjustment there. Do you have any advice?
There will always be an adjustment. Just remember the entire formula and you'll be fine. Everything will adapt around you as it needs to. Some things will not adapt, but then those things are not necessarily going to remain part of the reality that you prefer to experience.
Yeah. And so one of the consistent kind of synchronicity signs I'm having is 9/11. I keep seeing that on the clock. I see mostly all of the numbers, but that one seems to be the most consistent that I see every day.
Yes, well, it has generally become a symbol in your reality of the idea of abrupt, unexpected change.
Interesting. Okay. And so with that, I want to thank you for the transmission that you gave us on in December of Eye of the Storm 2020. That has been really paramount to
all right.
remaining in the center. I feel like I'm in this bubble reality of just well-being and experiencing a lot of really great synchronicity and a lot of beautiful things.
It is a companion, and the first part that is connected to this particular interaction, going from the eye of the storm now to what we are calling the eye of the needle, which is the narrow passage you are all passing through at this time, by being able to use this time to strip yourselves down to your essential core and let go of those things that are no longer you, so you can more effortlessly use the calm in the center of the eye of the storm to pass through the narrow passage of the eye of the needle and come out the other side in a manner that is more representative of who you prefer to be.
That's what it feels like, a lot of awareness of things that are just choices, not necessarily that they're wrong or bad, but just a lot of options that I'm aware of that I can choose what works for me.
This is the time to make choices. This is the time to decide. This is the pivot point. This is the eye of the needle. This is the passage.
Beautiful. And then you did mention, though, that you said 2020 was going to be nuts, and I have to agree. But you also said that there would be some event in September with the Eastern Bloc. And so I guess it's going to be even more nuts than we're experiencing right now.
I cannot comment on that at this time.
Okay.
You are not yet, any of you, on the other side of the eye of the needle.
Okay. Good to know. And then the last thing I just want to ask about is another synchronicity sign. Time feels so funny to me. A couple years ago, it is funny. There was an energy that I kept feeling around me, and you had said there was a name to this energy, Sadie, and it never manifested in an actual human baby that I was feeling. But I do keep seeing signs of this truck that keeps coming into my awareness, Sadie Rose. Do you have anything to say on that?
It is, in some sense, an opportunity to recognize that at that moment you are in the proper state when you see that synchronicity to communicate with that being.
Okay.
So just open up your mind and let in what comes in at that moment and see what you get.
Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate you.
As we appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Good day.
Good day.
Me to stop.
Absolutely. You can always rely on us.
The first question is around death.
Yes.
Yes, so I understand what you've taught us about each slice of reality and that we're just moving from slice to slice.
Yes.
But I'm just really curious about what that slice of reality is when we transition. What is that next reality, and what kind of dimension it is, and do we continue being the entity as we know of ourselves here?
No.
No.
No, you are more than what you are as a physical personality. You will retain that quality, you'll retain that experience, you'll retain that information, but you will be more than that in much the same way that you retain the experience and information you picked up in going through earlier grades of school, but you are beyond that now. You are more than that now. You are an adult as opposed to a child, even though the child still exists within your experience of yourself. You don't define yourself as only being the child anymore. So similarly, when you expand back into the idea of your spirit self, it's like growing up and retaining your childhood experiences and memories and understandings of what you've learned, but you are more than that and see things from a higher point of view, a broader perspective that allows you to utilize the experience in a more expanded way. Remember that it's still you overall. It's always happening to you, but you will recognize yourself as more than you thought yourself to be here in physical reality, just as you now think of yourself as more than the child you used to be.
And so when the transition, once we transition to the other dimension, it could also be a physical or a non-physical or a semi-physical.
Well, physicality only goes so far in terms of dimensionality. You are shifting from third density to fourth density, and that is all within the idea of the fourth dimensional reality of space and time. But when you actually transition to a higher frequency than that, into fifth density and into the spirit realm and higher forms of vibration, you actually are crossing the threshold from one dimension, the fourth dimension of space and time, into the fifth dimension of non-physical reality. Therefore, you will experience things in a very different way. Time and space will be much more malleable and flexible and not as rigid or crystallized as you experience it to be in physical reality, which does have a border to it, and it ends at the edge of the fourth dimension, which is also fourth density, which is what you're transitioning into now, a higher state of physical reality. But beyond that, you have to go into non-physical reality, or at least not physical reality as you understand it now in your space-time matrix.
Yes. But does one go there and then decide to actually enter fourth density again? Is it possible?
You can create that experience, but remember, everything exists all at once. So you're just creating an experience of going back into fourth density, but all that actually is a shift of perspective, because that reality already exists. That experience, in a sense, is already set up as a structure, but you can have the decision and make the choice as to whether you want to focus on that particular experiential structure or whether you wish to focus on something different, because all of those options are available to you at the same time.
And so are the higher dimensions even, right?
Yes, of course.
8, 9, 10. So they're all there, but
they're all here and now.
They're all here.
Yes.
But somehow, from where I have chosen to be in this dimension, the next transition is to the fifth and not to the 10th, for example.
Well, again, you may cross a threshold from the fourth to the fifth just to give yourself a sense of transition from this particular experience. But in the idea of stepping across that threshold, you will also automatically be given the opportunity to go to the 10th if you wish.
Whoa. And does that transition or the result of the transition somehow is affected by how I've lived this life, how I've experienced this life, just like how I am now based on how I've lived my childhood?
In some sense, yes, but in this day and age, you have much more awareness as a society that you do have the freedom to choose, whereas past societies may not have known that as clearly, and then may have had things happen seemingly automatically that were still choices, but they may have not necessarily been absolutely conscious choices to experience certain things, or they may not have been as aware of all the choices they had in the way that all of you are now because of your exploration of spirituality and consciousness. So it may be a little bit easier for you to be aware of the choices you have in this day and age than used to be true of past eras on your planet historically.
Yes, got it. So my second question is based on something you've told us about how there are lots of spaceships around and sometimes they just shift their frequency so that we can't see them.
Yes.
So is that frequency just beyond the frequency that our eyes can see? Sometimes
it's such a high frequency that you will not necessarily see them, even if you shifted to the frequency above your physical reality. It just depends on what they're doing and where they are at in that frequency spectrum.
Right. And so those that are doing whatever frequencies or changing whatever frequencies, they are able to see. So they have the ability to see at the frequency.
Maybe and maybe not. Remember, the idea of the shifting of frequencies isn't always an intentional thing. It may just be par for the course of what they're doing. Therefore, they may shift their frequency automatically to do what it is they're focused on doing and may have absolutely no awareness of you.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't need to.
Sure.
So I'm not saying that's always the case. It simply may be in the same way that you may be driving a car and passing through a neighborhood, and you don't necessarily have to be aware of who are in the houses that you're passing just to get where you're going.
Yes, exactly what I thought. Great. Thank you. So a few years ago when I met you for a session, you mentioned that I asked if I had hybrid children, and you mentioned that I am myself a multidimensionally nested hybrid being acting as a probe.
Yes.
Another version of myself that is a hybrid being.
Yes.
Of the Yael. And
yes, this is common for many of you.
Yes. And you mentioned that she might decide or not to come. And I'm wondering if at this point the decision has been made and if we will meet.
The probability has increased, but it is not finalized. Let's just say right now it's above 80%.
That she'll come, but
yes,
the percentage that will meet.
Again, above 80%.
Oof, yay. Great. So last question. This virus, coronavirus situation that we have here, has it accelerated open contact? And if it has, at this point, reading the energy, what is the likelihood of the year that it will happen?
You are passing through the eye of the needle, as we have called it, and it completely depends on what you do with this time of passage as to whether or not you will experience an acceleration or a deceleration of the idea of contact.
Okay. So at the same time, I'm feeling, during this time, as you call it, the eye of the needle, I'm feeling some cellular level body changes at night when I'm sleeping. Is that?
Yes. It's par for the course, because you have to let go and strip yourselves free of anything now, more importantly than ever before, that simply does not resonate with your vibrational compatibility in order to be able to pass effortlessly through the eye of the needle.
Yes, thank you. I really feel that. I'm so happy that you have...
It is our passion and our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
Good day.
To you too.